about 18 years ago, I was a hopeless addict. I was born in North Philadelphia, an area called the Badlands that really looked really bad. It's like bombed out Baghdad or something, you know. It's empty lots, all concrete, no really place for a kid to grow up. And I grew up with really poor foster families that really were more interested in the check than they were interested in my sister and myself. I remember at 5 years old, we were so neglected that we were starved, and I got ran over 3 times in 1 year because I was unwatched. You know, I'm a 5-year-old kid sitting on the side of the street on 13th and Green, and if a ball went out into the street, I ran out and got it. And so the third time that I was ran over, it was by a pickup truck, and I can remember the faces on the people. You can't remember much when you're 5 years old, but I can remember the surprised look on their faces when they found out that I was alive after they jacked the truck off my body. He said, "He's alive." I remember that so distinctly. My sister and I went back to the orphanage to get our records. And one of the reports was that Charles and Nellie's legs wobble when they walk because they're malnourished. And so I grew up in the streets of North Philadelphia. And most young men don't live past 20 in those streets. But somehow I got out of North Philadelphia into another area in a blue-collar worker family. And for the first time, we had clean sheets on the bed. And I remember the feel of the clean sheets because I'd been sleeping on the floor and on dirty linen and stuff like that. And I just thought that this is like the greatest. We're rich now. We weren't really rich. It was a blue-collar family. And they actually took us for the money as well. I started following Martin Luther King, and I went to I was about 13 years old when I went to the Poor People's March in Washington, D.C. And when he spoke his I Have a Dream speech, for the first time in my life, I had a dream, you know. And so I got really cleaned up, and I was like looking really snazzy. But I remember when, in 1968, he was shot. And it felt like that bullet went through him and into my heart. And I remember saying the words as I was watching the program on television, "They'll never let me be anything." And someone brought in a bottle of vodka for our graduation rehearsal. And I drank for the first time in my life. I had never smoked or never drank before in my life. And I drank, and I was an instant alcoholic. I got drunk, and all of a sudden, I was introduced to this place called Oblivion, where I didn't have to feel, and I didn't want to feel. So I drank for the next 30-plus years. I got booted out of the Navy because I picked up drugs in the Navy. It was during the Vietnam era, and heroin was really big, and I started doing that, and I got in trouble, and man, I was a wreck. By the time I got to Chester, Pennsylvania, I had about 8 teeth in my mouth. I was about 150 pounds, disgustingly dirty and smelly. I used to go to CityTeam to get something to eat because whenever I got work, I would give all the money to the drug dealer. And CityTeam was there to feed me. And I used to put food in this margarine tub that I cleaned up and bring it home and put it in my window. And I remember a squirrel used to try to get to my food. And I lived in an abandoned building with rats and roaches. And you had to put toilet tissue in your ear at night so the roaches wouldn't crawl in there. And sleep with your shoes on so the rats wouldn't nibble on your toes. And one day I was walking around the corner. I had gotten some money from doing an odd job for someone, and I brought 3 bags of cocaine. And I was walking back around the corner, and I walked through a group of young boys, and they looked at me and started laughing. Well, I expected them to laugh because I was a mess. I was about 150 pounds, no teeth, really unkept. And like as I moved away from them, I got about maybe 15 or 20 feet away from them, and I felt a sting in the back of my head, and they shot me in the back of the head 4 laughs. And I remember hearing them laugh as I was going into the black, look at all that stuff leaking out of his head. Good shot and all things like that. And I just blacked out. The next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital. And I asked the doctor, had he taken out the bullet? And he said, no, we didn't take out the bullet. And they said, you're going to have to wait here for a while. We're going to have some specialists come in and see you. And when he left the room, I looked across the room, and there was a pile of my bloody clothes. I still had my military jacket and everything. And so I pulled the intravenous catheter out, and I started getting dressed, and the nurse started yelling, you can't leave, you got a bullet in your head. You got to stay. You can't leave. The doctor's got to see you. And I said, lady, I'm leaving. I knew I had the drugs in my pocket. And this is one of the most horrible things that had happened to me, and I just didn't want to feel. So I went back to the abandoned house, and I did the drugs, but this time I didn't get to oblivion. The drugs just didn't work. And so I just kept hearing this voice in my head saying, those kids were right. You might as well just die. And so I tied a rope to a fixture on the ceiling. I put the rope around my neck, and I stood up on a chair about that high, and I stepped off, expecting to die. I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened the next few minutes. I don't know how I got 4 blocks away to the front door of CityTeam, but I did, and I walked in. And the lady that was the receptionist said, you can't stay. I'm the only one here. You got to come back. And I remember my sit-in days with Dr. Martin Luther King, and I figured if I sit down, she can't pick me up. And I sat down, and I said, lady, if I leave, I'm going to die. And she was still fussing when the staff came out, and they looked down the hall, and they saw me. And the director came down. And as he was walking towards me, I was saying to myself, all the food I've taken out of here, they're going to put me out. I thought I was stealing the food. I didn't know they wanted me to have the food. And when he came up on me, I'm like, this is it. And I stood up. And he grabbed me and he hugged me. And he even leaned in deeper and he whispered in my ear, we've been waiting for you. And I said, will you take me in? He said, we sure will. And that's when I got in the CityTeam, and I would have did anything they asked me to do, you know, and I did. I worked really, really hard. And it was this bathroom that was very stinky that our homeless guests used, and nobody wanted to use it, and nobody wanted to clean it. And one day they lined us all up, and they said, we need a volunteer to clean this bathroom. And I remember my Navy days, you don't volunteer for anything. If anything, you take a step back. But my hand went up, and I said, I'll clean that bathroom. And I was like, are you sure? I said, yeah, I'll clean that bathroom. I don't even know what was driving it. But I cleaned the bathroom so clean that the staff would literally avoid using their bathroom and come down and use the homeless people's bathroom because it was so clean every day. I cleaned that bathroom every day I was in CityTeam. They said, you got another job, you don't have to clean that bathroom. But something happened about a week and a half into cleaning that bathroom. As I was cleaning the bathroom, it was just like a light came on, a revelation came into my heart that God was cleaning me the same way I was cleaning the bathroom. And so I was on my knees anyway, cleaning behind the toilet when it just struck me, God is like cleaning me up. And I said my first prayer, and it was very awkward. I didn't know how to pray. I said, you know, I don't know you, but I got the feeling if you'd just let me into your set, I don't know what I was saying. It was the awkwardest, worst prayer in the world. And I said, you just let me in. And I thought I'd seal the deal. I said, I'll be the least of your servants, and I'll even clean bathrooms in heaven. And God touched my life right then. I had did someone a favor, and I had a pack of cigarettes in my pocket. When I stood up, I said, this is not right. I threw the cigarettes in the dumpster, and I haven't smoked a cigarette since. I haven't did drugs since. God has honored his promise, and I've honored my promise to him. I will serve him to my last breath. Yes. I will tell people about Jesus. Amen. From the highways to the byways to wherever I can go. And so that's what happened. I ended up forming a group called the Alumni Group, and everybody stayed sober. I ended up, the first job I got when I graduated was cleaning bathrooms. God's got an amazing sense of humor, right? Yeah, he does. And so...
you promised.
Yeah. He held me to my promise. That job turned very lucrative, and I started hiring guys from CityTeam. And everybody stayed sober, and everybody was wondering, how are these guys staying sober? When I got paid at the end of the week, and I paid my guys, we all sat around the table, and we put our money in the middle of the table, and we say, this is your money, God. Show us how you want us to spend it. And we all stay sober. They asked me to come out here and head CityTeam San Jose up, and I've been here for the last 9 years. I married a beautiful woman, and God's been so good to me. I never forget, I was behind the bucket. I was doing a side job in a beautician shop. And I said, this is really good, God. I'm going to retire from this. You have made me the happiest man in my life. And it was like God was saying, this is not it. This is the beginning. And I moved from behind the bucket to behind my executive desk. That's God. That's God.
And tell us.
I have a question. Where is the bullet?
The bullet is in the back of my head. That's the favorite question of everyone. It's still there. It's still lodged in there and hasn't moved, and I haven't died of. It's like God's just holding it there and protecting me from it even now to the day. Wow. Yeah.
And just tell us, how do you know Richard?
I know Richard because he ran the CityTeam in Pennsylvania. And I remember I had like this really challenging day because I was trying to lead men, and I was like, God, I don't know if I can make it. This might not be for me. I had this doubt just set in, and I was sitting on a stairwell, and I was like making my plans and say, well, this is it, I can't finish. I was still in the program. And Richard walked by and just put his hand on my shoulder and said, I believe in you, Charles Nuckles.
Have we had Richard's hand on our shoulders?
Yeah.
We know that feel.
Right. That saved the day for me. Yeah. And kind of like that's the fuel I've been running on, for a long time. I believe in you, Charles Nuckles.
Praise God.